Welkom terug. Nou kyk, ons sosiale media vraag vandag is, wat is op jou emmerskoplys? En Janice Barry sluit by ons aan. Nou sy is 'n avonturier en ek kan vir jou sê, dit bly nie net op die emmerskoplys nie. Sy pak dit eintlik aan. Janice, welcome. It's such a privilege to have you here on the show today.
Oh, thank you very much. It's lovely being here.
So I thought what stood out of your story is at
Yes.
the age of 70, you decided to
Yeah.
sail around the world. And I mean, that's such an amazing thing to think, okay, I'm sailing around the world, because I can't even imagine sailing around the world. Why did you decide, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Well, I didn't really decide. It just kind of happened. Because at 18, I wanted to go to sea, and my father had a complete thrombosis.
Oh,
And we
wow.
fought for 3 months, and he won. And that's why I ended up in corporate for 50 years.
Wow.
So my life was falling to pieces. Well, it was imploding.
Yes.
And I just suddenly heard these words come out of my mouth. Why don't we sail around the world? I hadn't thought it through. I just said it, and we did it. I just got on the boat and we went. It took a year to get ready, but yeah.
I think that's quite amazing, because a lot of people think, okay, you know what, I want to do this. I still want to
Yeah.
accomplish this one day. And the fact that you said, okay, you know what, I just said it and we just did it. And yes, you took a
Yes.
year to get ready,
Yeah.
but you did it. A lot of people don't actually have the courage to take the next step to do it.
I think that I'm quite impulsive and spontaneous. And I didn't think it through. I had to sell my house, and I had to close a business, and had to find somebody to look after my horses.
Wow.
And my sister took my last couple of dogs, because I'm a dog rescuer, so she took the last 2 I had, and who came back to me afterwards. And yeah, I had no idea what to expect. The first 24 hours was hell. It was very rough, and I couldn't go down into the boat because I knew I would have been sick.
Yeah.
So I stayed up in the cockpit. The weather was awful. The sky was grey, the sea was grey, it was rough. We were beating, which means you're just going straight into the waves like that.
Wow.
And I just sat there and I watched South Africa go past me along the coast. And I thought, what have I done to myself? This is like boarding school. You're in a place and you can't get out.
Dit laat my dink, toe julle begin het met hierdie reis, ons gaan nou
Ja.
na van hierdie mooi foto's kyk, maar wat was van die vrese wat Tannie gehad het?
I didn't actually have fear. It was quite traumatic leaving. Well, actually, leaving when we got stuck in Cape Town for 5 months because the paperwork wasn't right. But coming down that coast, actually leaving, I just like howled the whole way out of Durban Harbour. I was just so traumatized by knowing I wouldn't be back for 3 years or something.
Wow.
Wow.
And so I have to admit that I was a bit wet there. I was a bit like, So, and then it was just coping with conditions.
Yes.
And eventually I had to go down. I hope I can say this on air, to the loo. And then it's this tiny little place, a little strip of cabin that you're walking through. And as you're walking through, you're getting thrown around.
Wow.
You've got bruises on your hips and bruises everywhere because you haven't got your sea
Yes.
legs yet.
This sounds worse than Survivor to me.
No.
Far worse than Survivor.
No, it's not worse than
It's not, you think so? You celebrated your 71st birthday in Panama. What a blessing.
Yes. Oh, that was.
Tell
yeah.
us about it.
We had grounded in Panama, and we'd gone into shallow, and the tide was much bigger than we thought. And I was just going to bed, and I suddenly heard all this really bad noises, scrunching and bumping, and the boat was doing strange things. And I woke him, and I went, oh, something's happening. I think we're dragging the anchor. And actually, so he came out on deck, and he went, no, we grounded. And then for the next 3 hours, we fell, literally from one side to the other. The most amazing thing, and I made tea, Joko for these everyday mishaps.
Yes.
It wasn't good tea, but I made it. And I'd hold the kettle up as we went bang over this way, and all the crockery and everything in all the drawers and everything crashed on this side, crashed on that side,
Wow.
backwards and forwards. And then as the tide was coming in, I sat with the tiller. I was always on the tiller.
Yes.
The sails were very heavy. I sat on the tiller with the engine and revved the engine so that we wouldn't get washed onto the island behind us, the rocks. So for 2 hours I did that, and at midnight we lifted off, and it was my 71st birthday, and I had a huge slab of Cadbury's. I didn't realise I was stressed. I ate the whole thing in 5 minutes. I just went...
Were you an experienced sailor prior to this? Because no.
I'd never sailed before.
Are you
Never,
serious?
ever. No. That's why I didn't know what I was getting into.
That's incredible, because I, actually thought, if you did something like this, you would be an experienced sailor to at least know how to do it.
No.
And this is surprising.
No,
But sorry, we do have to mention you did have an experienced sailor with you.
Oh, yes.
Because I don't want people to just get into a boat.
No. You don't do it unless you are experienced.
Yes.
It's very dangerous. So, no, yes, I couldn't have done it myself.
Wow, that's
you've got to
incredible.
have some, because it's very complicated. Not only currents and winds and weather, but going in and out of harbours and, up the Australian coast, sandbanks and coral reefs, and you've got to anchor out. So you then have to get on the dinghy. That was probably the most traumatic thing, especially in St Helena. St Helena is just like 3,000 meters of piece of rock in the middle of the sea, and there's nothing, coral reef or anything, to stop the current coming in.
Wow.
So literally the ocean surges in, crash, and you've got to get from that was a very wobbly dinghy, a very unstable dinghy, onto a high wharf.
That's really incredible. Janice, we do want to hear all about these stories and lots more places that you visited that we can't wait to hear about it, and we'll chat about it in the next segment. Ons gaan voort met ons gesprek saam met die avonturier Janice Barry. En sy praat natuurlik onder andere oor die feit dat sy 3 jaar vat het en reg om die wêreld geseil het van Durban tot by Durban. Janice, what were some of your highlights in these 3 years?
You know what? The world is such a beautiful place. It is just, and the night skies. There's no light. There's a bit of light pollution with the navigational lights, but that's very minimal. And I cannot even begin to explain the magnificence of the night skies. Just incredible. The Milky Way stretching right across. And then the Southern Cross, and I used to go, that's home, yay, that's home. And the South American rivers were just incredible. They're like kilometers wide and very, very deep, which is why we could go up them. The Rio Chagre particularly, which feeds into the Panama Canal, just so exquisite. And the howler monkeys, troops of howler monkeys on each side that's the Caribbean, on each side of the river, and in the evenings and the mornings they howl, and it just reverberates, all echoes up and down the river. It's just exquisite. And the different languages and the different people and the different customs, and just the beauty of the world, the sea, the ocean. Just to, the Indian Ocean and Atlantic and the Pacific, you'd think an ocean's an ocean, but actually they are totally different. So, you're sailing on them differently.
Wow.
And so it's a different experience with each ocean.
You did this when you were 70 years old. You started the journey.
Yes.
You are now 74.
Yes.
Would you do this again?
Yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow, for sure.
Wow. You sacrificed so much. As you said, you had to give up your house, your car, your business, and you're literally busy rebuilding your life. I have 2 questions for you. How much did it cost to actually do this journey approximately? And then also, how are you rebuilding your life at the moment?
Well, to tell you the absolute truth, I'm really shocking with finances. So I never calculated, but it was very expensive. Like, for instance, the Panama Canal, you pay in dollars, US dollars, and the rand was really, really the worst it was at that time. So that cost us about 30 grand.
Wow.
Because there's line handlers and actually going through, and pilots. There has to be a pilot the whole way through. And then, of course, the exchange rate is what knocked us hugely.
Wow.
And when you get to Australia, of course, the exchange rate is also like really, really bad.
Pirates, this must be a very silly question, but I'm just thinking, pirates, was it safe?
You know what? We didn't go down the Suez Canal.
Okay.
I had a moment outside Colombia where, and you're just such a sitting duck because you can't go anywhere fast. Venezuela blew up, which is what had a war, which is what shortened the whole trip, because it's seasonal. You've got to get out of the northern summer below a certain latitude or above a certain latitude to avoid the hurricane season, and then the same in the southern, for the southern season. So, you know, there's a few months where you actually can't sail. So we had to hurry the trip up, and we had to go past Colombia. Well, we were going to go past Colombia anyway, but we're sitting in this exquisite sea. And these little boats with huge engines come roaring up.
Sure.
And for a moment I just thought, oh no. But actually they were wanting stuff which we didn't have for them.
Wow.
And they actually just went away. But there is that moment where you go like, especially with the trouble in Venezuela.
We've got about a minute left, and
Yes.
I do want to touch on this about the rebuilding of your life.
Yes.
You went to go volunteer at Funda Nenja in KwaZulu-Natal, and you're now trying to duplicate that
Yes.
project. Talk to
Yeah.
us for a minute about that.
Well, Funda Nenja is the most incredible organization. They go into Mpopomeni Township and they train the kids how to care for the dogs, which means the dogs' lives are improved and so the kids. And over the 12 years they've been operational, it's now community upliftment. So now I fell in love with them. And I'm now wanting to do that in Diepsloot, which is what I'm going to do. I've just got to get it together and get funding and all that kind of thing. I also have to earn a living, but the main thing I'm focusing on at the moment is Diepsloot with the kids and the dogs there. There is so much need. And I have to say those dogs, those kinds of dogs are my passion. You know,
Wow.
rescue and shelter and township dogs.
Well,
And the kids too, because it's all interlinked. You can't do one without the other, you know.
Well, I just want to say you are an incredible inspiration, not just for what you did, but also what you are busy doing in the community. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today.
thank you.
God bless you on your journey.
Thank you so much. You
baie,
make me cry.
baie dankie. Ek hoop jy's geïnspireer vandag. Dit is die 74-jarige vrou wat binne 3 jaar in 'n klein seilboot van Durban tot Durban om die wêreld geseil het. Baie dankie. Dit is Tannie Janice